Imagine sitting down with 11 of the world's most successful people and asking them, what was the real turning point in your journey? I just did that. And guess what? It wasn't the fame or the money. For most, it was a single moment, a decision, a failure, or even a piece of advice that changed everything. In case you're tuning in to my channel for the first time, hi, I'm Marisa Murgatroyd, and I've coached and supported tens of thousands of impact-driven coaches, experts, and service providers in growing their online businesses, and I'm here to help you succeed too. All right, I gotta be real with you. I wasn't actually able to sit down with these game changers, but I did take the time to analyze some of the best speeches ever made so you can use their insights to get ahead in your business. Watch until the end, because I've added another speech you can't ignore. Not because it's a winner, but because it might be the worst advice I've ever heard. If you disagree, feel free to explain why in the comments. Okay, before we dive in, smash that subscribe button because I've got so many more videos like this coming up. The first speech is one of the most iconic of all time. Steve Jobs' 2005 Stanford commencement address. During that speech, Jobs talks about going to an expensive college. After a few months, he's frustrated. Here he is using up all of his working class parents' life savings, taking classes that just don't inspire him. He has no idea what he wants to do or how college will even help him figure it out. So he makes a bold choice. He drops out. He has no plan, no dorm room, and no idea where this decision will lead him. But that choice allowed him to start doing something most people never even consider in college: learning purely out of curiosity. One day he stumbles across a calligraphy class. Interested, he decides to drop in. He's fascinated, learning about serif and sans serif typefaces, spacing between letters, and all the details that make typography beautiful. He doesn't see any practical application for this at the time. He's just interested. Flash forward 10 years, Jobs is creating the first Mac. And suddenly, all that calligraphy knowledge comes flooding back. That single class became the foundation for what would make the Mac the first computer with beautiful typography and multiple fonts, things we take for granted on every computer today. Sometimes it's the moments we follow our curiosity without knowing where they'll lead that shape our future in unimaginable ways. The second speech is one of the greatest ever delivered to people who want to start a business. It comes from the legendary Warren Buffett. And it's not only super inspiring, but a powerful lesson in storytelling. Buffett starts by saying, actually, instead of reading what he says, let me just play this part for you.
I would like to tell you of two women that each sold a business to Berkshire Hathaway, to me actually, for many, many, many millions of dollars. Both of them started with $2,500. By a coincidence, it was the exact same amount. It was everything they had in the world.
One of these women was Rose Blumpkin, who landed in Seattle in 1917. She didn't speak a lick of English and had a tag around her neck. And get this, the tag read Fort Dodge, Iowa. She was headed to reunite with her husband, who'd come to the US a few years earlier. Talk about resilience. Rose arrived as an outsider, struggling with the language and feeling judged in a new world. But she didn't stop. She moved to Omaha in 1919, found a community, and slowly began saving money by selling used clothing. Over the years, she saved $2,500. It took her 20 years and unimaginable grit. In 1937, she used that $2,500 to open Nebraska Furniture Mart in the basement of her husband's store. Her mantra: sell cheap, tell the truth, don't cheat nobody. She cared deeply about her customers, outworked everyone, and grew her store into the largest indoor furniture mart in America. In 1983, Buffett bought 90% of her business for $60 million. Yup, $60 million. Here's the powerful lesson. Success doesn't start with fancy resources or $1 million loan. It starts with determination, serving your customers in the best possible way, and knowing you're willing to work harder than anyone else. This is a lesson we can all take to heart. The third speech is Admiral William McRaven's commencement address at the University of Texas in Austin, which is now my home. McRaven, a former Navy SEAL, doesn't give vague advice. He straight up tells us how to face the darkest days and push through. While the lessons he shares come from SEAL training, the wisdom is universal. You've got to show up no matter how small the task, no matter how bleak things seem. And this takes training. McRaven suggests starting each day by accomplishing one small thing, making your bed. It's a daily win that creates momentum and a sense of control, even when the big stuff feels out of reach. One of my favorite moments is when McRaven says, if you want to change the world, don't ever ring the bell. You see, in SEAL training, there's a brass bell that you can ring to quit anytime. And it's a powerful reminder to stick it out, especially when things get uncomfortable. There will always be moments when quitting feels easier, but McRaven's message is to hold on, keep going, and find your strength, even when it feels impossible. The fourth speech is from one of the most successful celebrities ever, but her advice is worth its weight in gold, no matter where you're at in your journey. It's Oprah's commencement speech at Spelman College. In it, she touches on 3 core principles: know who you are, find a way to serve, and do the right thing. Let's start with knowing who you are. Oprah talks about finding her identity, not in titles or roles, but in her deepest self. For business owners, this isn't just about a mission statement or brand values. This is about truly understanding what you stand for. When you're clear on that, every decision gets a little easier. Then, she emphasizes service. Oprah's wisdom here is that true success, lasting success, comes from serving others. She realized that being on TV wasn't just about fame, but about making a real difference. So think about how your business can be a force for good. How can it serve your customers in a way that goes beyond the transaction? Finally, do the right thing. She doesn't mean the easy thing, the profitable thing, or the popular thing, the right thing. This doesn't just apply to those big moments either, it's in the little actions. As Oprah says, let excellence be your brand. The fifth speech is a bit of a cheat. It's Mark Cuban's Outwork Everyone interview that's been making the rounds on YouTube since 2015. So while technically not a speech, I had to include it. Cuban's message hits hard and fast. He's all about being prepared, outsmarting the competition, and yes, putting in serious effort. He famously says, work like someone's out there trying to take it all away from you. And here's where I both agree and respectfully disagree with Cuban. While I admire his intensity, I don't believe in hustle and grind as a lifestyle. The truth is that too many entrepreneurs burn themselves into the ground and think it's the only way to succeed. But that's not a recipe for a sustainable, fulfilling business. Success doesn't have to cost your well-being. Here's the middle ground. Take Cuban's emphasis on preparedness and continuous learning. If you're serious about your business, you have to be in the know, whether it's about your industry, your competitors, or your customers. So commit to knowing your space better than anyone else. But while you're putting in the work, remember to pace yourself. Think about the long game, building a business that not only thrives, but also lets you enjoy the journey. Because a business that demands everything without giving you space to breathe isn't one you'll want to keep growing. If you want to build a long-lasting and fulfilling business, there are 6 essential skills you must have. These are the same skills that Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Oprah, and Mark Cuban, as well as every successful business owner, have mastered. Luckily, I've got a free guide that dives into how you can cultivate each skill to turn your unique gifts, talents, and passions into a long-lasting, profitable, and fulfilling business. You can grab it at the link in the description. All right, you ready for the 6th speech? This one's not from a famous person, but it blew up online, racking up millions of views within days. I'm talking about Donovan Livingston's speech called Liftoff. In May 2016, Livingston, a master's candidate at Harvard University, was selected to speak at the school's convocation. A pretty big deal, and he was more than up for the challenge. What he delivered was not just a speech, it was a call to dream big and challenge the limits that others place on us. Donovan starts by sharing his journey from the classroom where his voice was seen as a disruption to his moment of finding it and owning it. His words were pure poetry. He talks about education not just as a way to learn facts, but as a platform to break through the barriers that surround us. He says, "We were born to be comets, darting across space and time, leaving our mark." That right there is the heart of his message. You can feel it, right? The 7th speech comes from one of the greatest and most successful actors of all time, Denzel Washington. What he shared in his commencement address at the University of Pennsylvania on May 16th, 2011, is something that I started preaching to my students around the same time. So the most important lesson here is that Denzel and I are the same. Lol. Maybe not. Denzel's speech speaks directly to anyone who feels like they have to play it safe to make it. He flips that idea on its head with one powerful mantra: fall forward. Taking risks, embracing failure, and even messing up big are all signs that you're on the right path. Denzel tells us, don't fall back, fall forward. He's talking about going all in, even when the outcome is unknown, because that's where growth happens. So if you've got an idea, take the risk, try something bold. You're gonna fail at some point, it's inevitable. But as Denzel says, each failure is just a step closer to success. You're preaching to the choir, Denzel. I've been telling my students this for years and years, but it's the straight up truth. The 8th speech comes from professor, best-selling author, and storyteller, Brené Brown. Imagine this, you've worked hard, stepped out of your comfort zone, and finally, the spotlight is on you. And then bam, harsh criticism comes pouring in. For Brown, this came after her TED Talk went viral, and the public spotlight suddenly felt a bit like a floodlight, exposing every doubt she ever had. But it was a single quote from Teddy Roosevelt that changed everything for her. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena. This inspired her to stop fearing the critics. She realized that if you're showing up, creating and putting yourself out there, then criticism isn't a bad sign, it's proof you're taking risks. So step into the arena and dare greatly. Now, the 9th speech comes from the Terminator himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'll be back.
In it, he tells us to ditch plan B. Yep, you heard that right. Arnold's whole philosophy is built around this no safety net approach because in his mind, as soon as you start making a backup plan, you're pulling energy away from your main goal. Here's his logic. Thinking about what you'll do if you fail basically means you're letting in the tiniest bit of doubt. And Arnold is all about committing with everything you've got, even if it feels like you're walking a tightrope without a net. He says, when you know there's no backup, you actually become more resilient and more focused. So focus on plan A with everything you've got. The 10th speech doesn't hold any punches. It's Sheryl Sandberg's So We Leaned In, Now What TED Talk from 2010. In it, she talks directly to women in business and calls out the tough reality. Women are still way underrepresented in leadership roles. And the biggest culprit, many women aren't even in the room. Sandberg says that if women want a shot at the top, they need to make sure they're sitting at the table and claiming their space. If you want to get noticed, man or woman, don't lean back. You need to take that front row seat. She also highlights that on average, women still carry more of the housework and childcare. And if you want balance, she says, it has to start with true equality at home, and that you can't leave before you leave. This one's huge. Sandberg noticed that many women start stepping back when they think they might eventually have kids or other personal commitments. Her advice? Don't count yourself out too early. Keep your foot on the gas until you're absolutely ready to take that pause. I 100% agree. One thing I tell my students is that you can't gain momentum without risk. As soon as you put your foot on the gas, you're risking forward. So put that foot on the gas. All right, the 11th and final speech might be my favorite commencement address of all time. It comes from director M. Night Shyamalan. Shyamalan presents two versions of his life, one marked by unending success and the other by crushing failures. And he owns both equally. Every journey has its highs and its lows. Your setbacks don't define you unless you let them. They're just part of the bigger story, one that you control. So you need to own both sides of the journey and keep moving forward no matter what. Don't wait for permission to act on your vision. Seize it, own it, and make it real. You've got this, and I'm with you every step of the way. There you have it. 11 of the greatest speeches ever for anyone who wants to start and grow a successful business. Drop me a comment below with your biggest takeaway. And as promised earlier, I wanted to touch on a recent speech I feel is dangerous, especially if you're a woman business owner. I know I may get some hate, but honestly, I don't care. I'm fine with losing some people by sharing my authentic beliefs. So what's the speech that riled me up so much? Harrison Butker's 2024 commencement address at Benedictine College. Butker's message implies that fulfillment comes most naturally to women through marriage and motherhood. Now, there's nothing wrong with valuing family. It's one of life's deepest sources of love and meaning for many people. But here's where I see a problem. The assumption that this path is the only or highest path to fulfillment for women. I find it limiting for a graduation speech, which should ideally inspire people to define their own paths and encourage them to seek out a life that's uniquely meaningful to them. As a successful woman who's created a business from the ground up and chosen a path that doesn't center on motherhood, I can tell you that fulfillment and joy come in countless forms. I wouldn't be who I am without the many journeys around the world I've taken with my husband Murray. When we suggest that only a single path leads to true happiness, we risk invalidating the incredible diversity of lives that each human is poised to create. There's a silent expectation in Butker's speech that career success, personal freedom, and other forms of self-fulfillment are secondary or even superficial pursuits. But let's be clear. For some people, career success is a profound calling. For others, creating something from nothing, whether it's a business, a book, or an innovative product, is an act of devotion and commitment. Each of us has unique talents, drives, and aspirations. There's no reason to suggest that one person's dreams are more noble or righteous than another's. We come from different backgrounds, and not everyone wants the same life, nor should they. Our job as coaches and experts isn't to convince everyone to choose the same path, but to open doors for each person to pursue what's best for them. So if I were to give a speech to new or aspiring business owners, my message would be, you get to choose. You get to create a life that reflects your values, beliefs, and dreams. Don't let anyone else's expectations or definitions limit what you feel is possible. Define your own success. Live life on your terms, and remember that real fulfillment comes from being true to yourself. I hope you found this video valuable and inspiring. If you did, go ahead and drop me a comment below with your favorite speech, or if you disagree with my Harrison Butker's take, please let me know why. Also, I remain committed to sharing value-packed videos that will help everyone. So please subscribe, and don't forget to grab my free guide on the 6 essential skills for online business success. Inside, you'll discover how to cultivate the skills that will allow you to build a successful business that will light you up every day. So download the guide and then go out there and live your message. See you in the next video.